what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Found Footage Friday. Tom and I are back with another found footage movie. That's the name of the game.
It's the name of the game. And we are talking about a found footage movie today that is almost never mentioned, never recommended. It's not on anybody's list. I think I came across it accidentally scrolling through Tubi, which if you're, just getting into the genre now, Tubi is like a gold mine for found footage films, good and bad. So
Everybody.
Sometimes it's a shot in the dark what you're going to get.
Yeah.
And so I one evening didn't have anything to watch, found Crone Wood on there, which is the film we're talking about today. Crone Wood was a 2016 found footage film. Definitely found footage, no doubt about it. I'll read the description. So Crone Wood, a young couple who just met decides to go camping after a wonderful first encounter, a decision they will soon regret.
Oh, I love how vague that is. That's
very
good.
Vague. And I will say, enjoyable found footage film. There is a lot that I like it and that I hope to see in found footage films. There are some things that I didn't like as much and are often gripes of mine with found footage films. But I liked it. And I know you want me to give my rating. You want me to go first today. So
yeah, because this was a you movie. Like you saw this one first. I hadn't seen it. This was my first watch. So yes.
So this is tough. This is a tough one. I am going to give Crone Wood 5.5 out of 10 stars. Why are you shocked?
No reason.
Okay, 5.5
tapes.
5.5. Oh, not stars. You're right. 5.5 tapes out of 10 tapes.
Okay. Are you ready for mine?
I'm ready.
It's either you're either going to laugh about it or it's going to make you really mad. I'm not sure which one.
I'm going to say 11.
10 out of 10. No. Yeah. So I think this is also a pretty fun movie. I am going to have to do some justifying here. I'm going to give this is an easy 7 for me.
Wow. And you've been harder. It's taking you more to get some of those higher rated found footage films. So this is for you, one of the higher ratings you've given.
Yeah.
Wow. Every time this happens, like it makes the other one of us question whether or not our rating was fair.
Yeah.
I'm not going to change it. I'm going to say 5.5.
Yeah. No,
it's funny though. Like, I really do like this movie, but for certain reasons, I cannot rate it higher. But I
felt that way about what was the one we just followed?
Oh yeah,
I really liked it, but I only gave it a 6.
Yeah, it was sort of similar, and I gave it a really high rating. So
you gave it a really high rating.
Which what's interesting? This movie, it is more similar in a lot of ways to like a Blair Witch, just like the feel of it. I bet that's why you liked it. Then a lot of found footage films. So I know, like when I was first watching it, I thought I was going to give it a much higher rating.
Oh yeah, I can see that. I actually thought the opposite. I went into it after a couple things had happened. I was like, but yeah, I ended up. But this is again, I'm telling you, the endings, they make or break movies for me. It's that important.
This is a movie that I feel the first half of the movie is better. The setup.
Yeah.
It's a couple of people walking through the woods and with a camera. It's the best sort of my favorite setup for these movies. One of my favorite setups. I love found footage movies that just sort of go to investigate this really haunted place or this local legend or something like that.
Yeah.
This is more just people walking through the woods, which is super easy. I have to assume this movie had like almost no budget. That's I'm
inclined to agree.
Yeah, like I feel like I would have gone. I shouldn't say this. I couldn't actually do this movie myself, but I feel like I almost could have gone out
Yeah.
and filmed this movie myself.
Yeah,
But
no,
like
I
that's
agree.
not a
I agree.
knock on it. Like I think it's good. But yeah, I don't want to say too much more. What? So you gave so you are a 6. You said. Oh no, you're not.
7.
You're a 7. Wow.
I know.
So what can we say before we spoil this?
I definitely think if you are a fan of the Blair Witch, that you are more inclined to like this rather than hate it.
But see, I don't. I guess I don't hate
Well,
it.
you didn't hate it, is my
I
point.
like it.
Like, and I didn't say love necessarily because I don't love it. I just really
Yeah,
liked it. But I think that, like, it has a lot of those, like, really good feelings to it as far as,
it
like, what you were
does.
talking about. And I think the other thing with it being these two people that do this spontaneous trip as opposed to
Yeah.
the typical, we're gonna film a bunch of stuff for no reason because we're planning a documentary. Like, you know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like the camera is there's several times in this film where they cut the camera because they point out that it doesn't make sense to have it on.
They do, but also one of my biggest problems with this movie is
Oh.
there are times where it doesn't make sense, and they do still have the camera on. Like they say that, and yet
They
there are
do,
times
and
where
they
this
cut it.
dude is just filming uh, inexplicably. I think
Yeah.
so. I guess it's funny that I like the first half of this movie because I do have a problem with one aspect of the setup that I want to mention too once we get into spoiling.
Into
So
spoilers. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, so what I liked about it that's unspoiled that warrants the rating I gave it, um, I'm gonna say the theme as far as what ends up being the situation. Um, I'm like, I'm really like, well, I'll talk about that when we get into spoiled, but I don't want to spoil. I'm trying to like be really, it's so hard to talk about things without ruining them. So the storyline itself is not a super strong storyline.
no,
I
simple.
think I think that I predicted a lot the first 5 minutes
Did
of the
you?
movie.
Did you? I see. I didn't, and so I was gonna say,
Uh-huh.
yeah, isn't that interesting? I was gonna say that if you actually want to go watch this, I hate to say this, but you probably don't want us to spoil this movie for you, which we're going to do at the second half of this video, because
Yeah, right.
I think
Yeah.
if you want to go into this not knowing what there is to know, if that makes sense. I
Yeah.
think if you started the movie and you already knew where it was going, I mean, figuring it out on your own is one thing.
Yeah.
But if you like walked into this knowing actually where it leads, I can't imagine it would be as rewarding.
I'm
Or
inclined to agree.
yeah,
So, okay, then without me saying anything about the major points of the
yeah,
story, I think that the acting was pretty okay, but I really liked the atmosphere. I liked the
yeah,
attempts at misdirection as far as
yeah,
what is going on.
yes,
I liked that you there even when you do piece some of it together, there's still a lot of gray
yeah,
areas where you're like, okay, but what else? Like, I don't like, and so I think it was very well paced and written well. Like as far as the way that the
mhm,
story goes, the characters, I felt like even though some of the acting wasn't super great, they were
it's
still
fine.
relatively believable. You
Yeah,
know what I
I thought it was
mean?
believable. I thought it
Yeah.
was more believable at the beginning when things start going bonkers. The
Yeah.
second half, I thought
Mm-hmm.
the acting wasn't quite as good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's my opinion. I also feel like this movie had a lot of come on moments for me. There were a lot of things that the characters chose to do that I was saying come on to the screen. I didn't agree. It was like you have that sort of thing in all of these movies, but I feel like this movie it was like a lot of it. Like, no way, come on, they wouldn't really do that, and then they
Well,
did.
and I think they make justifications for those things by building things like, a backstory and things. But the
Yep.
problem is just because you say there's a justification, it doesn't mean that the justification makes sense.
Okay, let's spoil this then.
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so can I just start off with the beginning of this movie?
Yeah.
This dude is on a date. Well, they're both. It's not just one. There's two of them. They're on a date, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they just decide they don't know each other at all, right? They've spent 12 hours together or something like that, and they
Mm-hmm.
decide they're going to go out into the woods together alone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I found that to be a little bit of a stretch.
Mm-hmm.
No, you
So
don't think
two
so?
things. These are my two thoughts on it. One, this was how I knew she was part of whatever was about to happen.
Okay.
I picked up on that immediately. I was like, no normal, intelligent female is going to willingly go into the middle of the woods with a dude they just met.
Right.
And so that was when I texted somebody and was like, I was like, this bitch is a part of it. Like I knew that that was the situation. And the second thing, and I'm not arguing that it's not a stretch because I
Yeah.
agree that it is. It's like up and, but a lot of this whole thing about her and him is that he was chosen for a reason. And I think that one of the many reasons she chose him is because she could feel and she could hear what he was saying as desperation. She asked him, how long, when was the last time you did something like this where you even spent this amount of time with someone?
Yeah.
And he's like, only you. So like, and I'm not saying that every guy, first woman that spends any time with them, they're just going to go off and like put themselves in this position. But I think that their attempt to justify that was because of the fact that he was so down on himself, so lonely, so like just not a part of our everyday world that it would make sense for him to just go away for. Because why not? But then and then there's like, the peppered in things where he's like, someone as beautiful as you would never give someone like me the attention. Like he says things, and I think that that's what I meant earlier by like, I think that they had those justifications, but I don't think they were strong enough to push everything. But I think that's the reason I say all that to say. But I think that the logic of him going with her is because he didn't want to risk never seeing her again, because he never gets that chance with anyone he's ever met before.
Right. And see, I did not pick up on all those clues and those hints. I just thought that it was weird that the two of them were I'm not great at predicting what's going to happen in the movie.
Honestly, that's a good thing. It sucks knowing what's going to happen in a movie.
Right. Yeah. And I did not see this coming. I just figured something terrible was going to happen to them in the woods. Not that either of them was necessarily nefarious.
Sure.
So they go out into the woods. They buy a tent. They buy all this crap to go camping. And I mean, the guy's not even like dressed properly to go sleeping out in the woods. They find some ruins, which is really cool. You wouldn't find most places here in the U.S. So I guess it being set in Ireland really does play a part in this movie, because presumably these are real ruins too. I'm not these look legit.
It's not a set piece, right? No, you're right. Yeah.
Which is cool. Some of my favorite stuff was them exploring that and knowing something bad was going to happen here in these ruins. I mean, the movie's called Crone Woods also. So you're sort of
and you want to talk about the lore? Because she tells him the lore of the woods, like before they even get there.
Yeah, what you want? You just saw it. Remind me what the.
So they call it Crone Wood, and because of the fact that it was believed that there was this like coven of witches. Because crone is like another name for like old woman, like a hag or something. And so, there was the story that there was this coven who used to bring men or people. Maybe she just said people. I can't remember that specific detail, and that they would sacrifice them, and like there was these things that they did in the woods, and that was why something to do with the name. That's why they changed the names, or they named it that, or whatever. But so essentially, when she said coven of witches, I was in. I love witch stuff. Love witch stuff. And so when she said that, I was immediately like, because I went into it thinking, because on the cover it's got the 3 masks. I'm like, oh, it's like a slasher. Like I immediately thought it was like a slasher.
Yep. I think I did too. Yes.
Well, and if I mean, I guess she does say the coven thing, but they do a really good job of making you think slasher until a certain point.
Yes. Yep.
So anyway, but yeah, so
Um,
Crone Wood because there was a coven of witches.
so it's a pretty simple setup. They're camping.
Yeah.
I think they hear something outside, or I don't know. One of them gets up to leave the tent.
He goes to pee.
He goes to pee, comes back, and they're hearing people like walking through the woods or something. Or they end up back in the ruins, and then they start seeing these people walking through the woods at night in pretty terrifying looking masks, like really creepy. Um, and eventually all the tent goes missing, and they're just basically stumbling through the woods. And they keep escaping and coming across these masked figures that their masks almost look like they're made of like animal heads or human skin or something like that. It's pretty scary.
They're very weird.
And then comes my one of my bigger problems, or as far as the plot of this movie.
Okay.
They come across this house, and the instinct, they call out, nobody's there. They knock on the door, nobody's there. They're looking for help because they're being chased and tormented by these masked figures. And their instinct is to just walk into this house and start exploring it. And even one of them even says, "So, I don't think this is a good idea." I think the girl's like, "I don't think this is a good idea." And, I mean, she's in on it, but then he's just like barreling through.
He's I'm going to go upstairs and find a phone.
I mean, that's like the come on, one of my come on moments. But I mean, that's fine. You expect that sort of stuff in these movies.
Yeah.
Of course, they're discovered.
I did think these next couple moments were pretty intense, though.
They were intense when they're discovered. They're hiding under the bed and like the boots, just sitting on the edge. All that's really good. Well,
yeah.
It's just more of the characters.
The logic, yeah.
Like, but of course, like she doesn't actually stop him because she's in on all of this.
It's all a part of this bigger plan.
All a part of this. And then, what happens? How do they end up with this?
They run out of the house. You know what? One of my favorite. I love reading subtitles when, or like closed captions. I mean, because sometimes the things. So the scene where he gets drug out from the bed. Yeah. When he realizes that the boots are empty.
Yep.
It's like in quotations, it's like, or I mean, in parentheses, it's like punching noises. And that made me laugh because I was like, that's such a juvenile way to describe it. I wouldn't know what I would have put, but I would not have put punching noises. Anyway, so they somehow miraculously get away. They get out, they go out, they run away, they run out into the woods, and they're running, and then they accidentally run into these three girls who are like in the middle as well. And
that's when I knew everything was. That's when I knew what was going on. It was at that moment I was like,
"That's good, though. It changes the experience when you know versus when you don't know." I'd not trust that girl from the very first 10 minutes of the movie. Like, I didn't trust her. Horror movies have given me extreme trust issues. Like, I don't believe everybody's a bad guy. Like, I just go into things assuming everyone's bad. But yeah, that's
it used to be when I come across three strange people walking through the woods. It didn't bother me, but now I can't handle it. But seriously, immediately when those three pop out, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah.
Then you were like,
walking through the middle of the woods, the deep woods. They're just like, oh yeah, our car's right over here.
And they had a camera too.
They did, yeah.
Or no, I'm sorry. She takes his camera. She takes his camera. I'm sorry. And she's like zooming in on him and like.
Yeah. Because you don't see much of him until someone else takes the camera. It's an interesting thing about this.
Yeah, because he's the camera person. Like
so then they go back to wherever for some reason, they don't go to the car. They go back to their house, wherever they live. And it's just like a commune for women or something, right? It's like, I don't know. And they're all acting weird. And it's just like immediately obvious, like, well, there's something going on. Is it a cult? Is it, still not exactly sure what it was, but pretty soon you figure out that he's in deep, deep trouble. There's this whole ritual that's really bizarre. that they start doing with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, that scenes those scenes like that are always so awkward. Even when I'm watching by myself,
yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah. A little really uncomfortable, some of those scenes.
yeah, I mean, well, and that's because once you get to the point where you're like, okay, witches.
Yeah.
Like when you get to that point, you're like, all right,
All
I
right.
guess this is,
Yeah. It was creepier when you thought they were just like, I don't know,
homicidal maniacs
like
living in the
homicidal
woods.
maniacs in masks living out in the woods. That was scarier. Although, that they're out in the ruins and like the ruins and like the, I don't know,
Yeah.
crumbling castle and all that stuff. Yeah, I get it, but like it was, I don't know. Once I found out that it was this like cult of witches or whatever, it was less scary and less. I don't know. That wasn't as scary for me, but
Yeah, I don't think it was scary so much as just crazy. Like
yeah,
it got crazy. Like the original scene or the start of the scene where they've got him like drugged and he's laid out and there's that
yeah,
whole like,
yeah,
impregnating
yeah,
and all of
yeah,
these things that are going
yeah.
on, like it still gets crazier than that.
Yeah, then there's like this nighttime sort of like ritual, and there's another person there that someone else has like captured and is going to marry or something like that.
Yep.
Um, I just kept thinking like all he had to do was like play along for a little while, and then he could escape, right? And he doesn't. He just like freaks out, tries to like
Yeah.
fight them, like he
Oh,
could have
the
got
scene
out of
where
this.
he's like on the kitchen floor drugged with a knife. I did
Yeah.
laugh at that. That was kind of funny. He's like on the floor naked and he's got like the knife and he's like
Yeah, like I mean, kudos to that guy. He kept fighting
he
the
was
whole
like,
way through.
if I'm going down, somebody's bleeding.
But they basically are like, "We'll let you live as long as you play along for a little while," and he can't. He just can't do it.
I
Um,
know.
and he is such a nice guy. He just thought he'd met a nice girl, and
And I guess the point of that change is just that he had been that like forever. The
yeah,
nice, do as you're told, do what people expect of you, and then I just think he picked a really bad moment to be defiant.
yeah. Just, I mean, literally, you're in the deepest dark woods, surrounded by a bunch of crazy people. It is not the time. It was not the right time.
What did you think of the setup of the fake missing guy that actually ended up being part of their coven? Because the guy that's tied down with him
Yeah.
is part of it.
Yes.
They're like,
And
oh, he's like, oh, you saved me when most people would have just left me to die. That shows compassion. I'm like,
I
y'all are
actually was
nuts.
I was confused. Like, yeah, no, I mean, once I like sort of figured out what it was, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that was pretty creative. But I mean, in the moment, I was just confused about what was happening, who these people were. Were they witches? Were they? I mean, I assumed they were witches because it's called Crone Wood, but was this just a cult? Like I wasn't exactly sure, um, what was going on. So I was just confused. But I still think this is one. I feel like I say this every time we review films. Like, I feel like everyone should watch this one. Like, I feel like this is a solid found footage film. Not my favorite by any means, like, not close, but very enjoyable. Definitely worth a watch. Free
Different.
on Tubi.
Pretty different.
Checks a lot of boxes. And you can't beat a movie, a found footage film, where you have some dummy running through the woods with his
Yeah.
camera still on. That's the best. That's why we watch found footage films. That's how it all began. So
Yeah.
very like uber Blair Witch feels though for this movie, which is
They even had, did you notice they even had a pile of sticks?
I saw that. Yes.
And the building or the first building they run into, because they see like some ruins a little bit later, but that first really big one
Yeah.
reminded me of at
Yes.
nighttime there were some shots that made me think of the house that they found in Blair Witch.
You expect there's gonna be someone with his like back turned to you in a corner? Yeah. Reminiscent of that.
Definitely had to have been influenced by like
Oh yeah, like
Yeah.
I mean, there's not another found footage film that is you see its influence more than Blair Witch, and a lot of, I mean, even in, we talked about it, even in like a sort of super popular found footage film, Incantation, that came out recently. We were talking about how we saw glimmers of Blair Witch in that, and same thing in this. A lot of homage, I would say, although more subtle. I want more found footage of a bunch of morons walking through the woods. That does it for me every time. I will watch every one of those movies.
Yeah.
You guys should all go watch this one. I like it. I like it better than a lot that I've watched. That's for sure. I like it better than Dash Cam.
Yeah. Well, and I think it just goes to show too that like because I have like certain boxes that if they're checked, I'm more inclined to overlook things that I might not be if those boxes are left unchecked. Because if this movie wasn't reminiscent of Blair Witch, if it wasn't witches at all, I probably would have rated it lower. But I like those elements. And I know that this was such a short moment, but I was going to ask you if you interpreted this the same way or if I'm just crazy. Sure. You know the scene where it has the 3 masks hanging on the line?
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
So they make mention of these gods, right? And she's like, if you fear them, you will be safe, or whatever she says. Yeah. And then there's like after a couple things happen, there's like a whoosh, and the masks are not there anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I had this like, I know, again, probably very low budget. I mean, the couple of gore things we got, it was really obvious what they did as far as the technique, right? Which I don't have. I'm fine with that.
Fine.
But
that's never my problem with these.
No. But I think like, well, and I always prefer more practical stuff anyway. So, and I think they did great with what they had, like, you know, but it made me wonder if there was actually supposed to be this like supernatural element to some of it.
Yes, that was, I think that's the point. You're supposed to think, is there a supernatural element here? Is this just a cult of, you know,
or are they actual witches?
Or are they actual witches? I think you could have gone any direction with that. Yeah. But it's one that should get mentioned more often. I mean, I definitely feel that way. I'm definitely surprised you don't ever hear about it. And I don't know if that's just because it's an Irish film that, you know, just didn't get a lot of buzz, but it's out there. It's available.
Yeah. Anyway, well, that's my thoughts on Crone Woods.
Crone Woods. Go watch it and see where you fall. Are you closer to a 5 or are you closer to a 7? Tapes.
Or are you way off and somewhere else? And
Literally, I just explained to my kids tonight what this is on my shirt. It was a wild conversation. Isn't that?
Oh my God.
Anyways.
That is so funny. One of the things I just brought upstairs the other day was my VHS DVD combo player.
You have
that thing is a heavy like piece.
When you say brought upstairs, you mean like brought it to put it away in the attic, or like?
No. Rude. I use it.
I don't have a VHS player. I don't.
Oh well, mine's a combo, but it's both. It does both, but it's No, I have like a lot of my original favorite like movies growing up I have on VHS, like The Crow and you know, like I don't know, all kinds of stuff.
I miss VCRs.
Just if it didn't work, you just blew some air in it. Magic.
No, that's Nintendo cartridges.
No, I did the Super VCRs too. Especially
really?
as a kid.
Wow. Yeah. All right.
Do you ever have to wind them up and then get really disappointed when that didn't magically fix it? Like a tape.
Bring back VHS tapes.
VHS tapes. Never forget.
Never forget.
Okay.
Well, we don't know what we're watching next time, but you should definitely watch whatever we're talking about.
Yeah. So anyway, that's our thoughts on Crone Woods.
Thanks for stopping by.
We don't know what we're talking about next week, so you'll just have to circle back and find out.
It's going to be great, I'm sure. And we'll probably have two wildly different opinions on it, like we usually do. Like this.
Have we been the same? Once. Was it Incantation?
Incantation, we both
was
liked.
the only one.
I think that's the only one we both liked, yeah.
It was the exact same number because I put it on the thumbnail because it was the first time that had happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, that's all I have for this one. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Tom and I will be back next week with another Found Footage Friday. Hope you have a good weekend, and we'll see you then.
See you then. Bye.